Video solutions for solving multi-step equations. So we've learned of the steps that are required to follow through on solving equations that have distributed property, combined like terms, have fractions in them, and then ultimately two-step equations. Okay, so let's start with the first one. 3x plus 2 times the quantity of x minus 4 equals 7. So the first thing we're going to do is check for fractions. Don't see any. Second, we're going to check for variables on both sides. I only see variables on the left, so that's good. Okay, then I do have minus, so I'm going to do same, change, opposite. And then I have these parentheses, so I have to do the distributive property. Always distributive property before combined like terms. So my new equation is 3x plus 2x plus 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. Get those integers right. Okay, combine like terms. I see I have an x term and an x term. So I add those up. So I have 5x's plus negative 8 equals 7. And now I'm left with my two-step equation. So I do opposite of the number, which is a positive 8 on both sides. They cancel, so I'm left with 5x equals 15. And then opposite of the operation, so I'm multiplying by 5. So I divide by 5. So x equals 3. Okay, pretty easy one. Next one. 4 plus negative 5x minus 6 equals 14. So I check for fractions, don't have any. My variables are on the left, right here. I do have subtraction, so I'm going to do same, change, opposite right there. Okay, I don't have distributive property. Even though these are parentheses, it's just separating this negative from that plus. So combining like terms, I see that I have a number term and a number term. So I'm going to bring my negative 5x over here because we like our x's on the left, plus 4 and negative 6. I take the sign of the bigger number, which is negative, and subtract. So that's negative 2, and that equals 14. And I'm left with the two-step equation. So I do opposite of the negative 2, which is positive 2. That means these will cancel. So I'm left with my negative 5x equals 16. Then opposite operation, so I'm multiplying by negative 5, so I divide by negative 5. Negative 5 over negative 5 will cancel. Okay, sign first. Positive divided by negative is a negative, and 16/5 can't be simplified, so that's my answer. Okay, third problem. So 2/3 x minus 1/6 plus 3 equals negative 9. Well, I do have fractions, so I have to get rid of the 3 here and the 6 here, and there won't be fractions anymore. So we know that we multiply by a number that both 3 and 6 go into, which in this case is 6. So I'm going to multiply every term by 6. Okay? So now, 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 2 times that 2 is 4, and they're x's, minus 6 divided by 6 is 1. 1 times the 1 is 1. Plus 6 times 3 is 18. And negative 9 times 6 is negative 54. Okay, now I have a pretty simple problem. I have a minus, so I'm going to do same, change, opposite. I don't have distributive property, but I do have a number term and a number term. So I have my 4x plus a negative 1 and a positive 18. Take the sign of the bigger number, positive, and I subtract. So that's 17. And that equals negative 54. And we're left with a two-step equation. So opposite of the positive 17, is a negative 17. If I do that on both sides, they cancel. So I'm left with 4x equals negative 71. So I divide by 4, divide by 4, and I'm left with x equals negative divided by positive is a negative. And the only numbers that go into 4 are 2 and 4, and they're even, and they don't go into an odd number. So I'm left with negative 71 over 4. Next problem. So I look at it, and I see I don't have any fractions. I do have variables on both sides, here and here. So I'm going to have to deal with those later. I have to get the variables to one side. Okay, I do have my minus, so I'm going to do same, change, opposite. All right, I do have the distributive property. So outside times everything on the inside. So it's going to be 4x plus negative 3. Okay, negative 2 times 3 is negative 6x plus negative 2 times 6 is negative 12. Okay, I don't have any distributive property because we can't cross that equal sign. It's a balance. So I have a variable term and a number term, can't combine those. And a variable term and a number term, can't combine those. So I have variables on both sides. I'm going to get this negative 6x over here. So the opposite of negative 6x is positive 6x. They cancel. I'm left with 10x plus negative 3 equals negative 12. And there's my two-step equation. So now I do opposite of the number and opposite of the operation. So opposite of negative 3 is a positive 3. They cancel. So I'm left with 10x equals, okay, I have negative 12 and negative or positive 3. So I take the sign of the bigger number, negative, and subtract. And I'm multiplying by 10, so I divide by 10. And I'm left with x equals negative divided by positive is a negative, so sign first, and 9/10 is already simplified. All right, pretty good. Okay, here's the next problem. I don't have any fractions. I do have minus, and notice I have a minus and nothing here. So we know that, like in an x, let's just say I have an x over here, that if I wanted to put a number in front, it'd be a 1. So I can do the same thing to parentheses, because the parentheses act like an unknown too. We don't know what that is because we don't know the x. So I'm going to put a 1 right there. Now I can do my same change opposite, and this becomes a negative 1. So now when I do my distributive property, I have something to multiply by. So I have 3x plus negative 1 times 2 is negative 2x plus negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. Then I have my plus 4 equals 12. Okay, combine like terms. I see that I have x's and x's. So 3x and negative 2x is just a positive x. And I also have a number term and a number term there, so I have to do combine like terms again. So negative 1 and a positive 4 is positive 3. All right, looks like a two-step, but there's nothing in front. So this is easy. It's just a one-step. I have a positive 3, so I do the opposite of the number. They cancel, and x is already by itself. So 12 and a negative 3 is 9. So it looked a little harder to begin with, but it was actually pretty easy. Next problem. I don't have any fractions. My variables are on the left, so I don't have to worry about variables on both sides. I do have that minus, so I'm going to do same change opposite. And then I have distributive property. So 2 times 5x is 10x. 2 times 2 is 4. I have my negative 3x equals negative 10. So I just rewrite it. Okay, next step, combine like terms. I have x's and x's, so 10x and negative 3x is 7x. Then I have my positive 4 equals negative 10. All right, positive 4, the opposite is negative 4 on both sides. They cancel. I'm left with 7x equals a negative 10 and a negative 4. That's an adding problem, so that's negative 14. Multiplying by 7, so I divide by 7. They cancel. I'm left with negative 14 over 7, so sign first. Negative divided by a positive is a negative, and 14 divided by 7 is 2. Again, not bad.